St. George was a soldier and the son of a soldier. And that was kind of the problem. Because by the end of the 3rd century, the 280s, the 290s, the early 300s, there were huge concentrations of Christian believers among the military of the Roman Empire. And since the military of the Roman Empire spread all over half of the known world, they did a great job in spreading the faith. And they were great soldiers because they were honest and obedient and didn't fear death because they believed Christ is risen. There was only one problem with these soldiers. If it came down to choosing between obeying my commander and obeying God, that's easy. And that's what got St. George into trouble. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, there were writers who attempted to explain to the larger secular Roman world, look, we Christians, we're the best citizens you have. And in fact, one of their own governors, Tacitus, admits the same thing. These Christians they're not only nice to each other, they're kinder to our people than we are to them. They're kinder to widows and orphans than the Roman Empire is. But when it came down to a choice between the emperor or Christ the King, that choice was clear. And that choice sent St. George, a decorated military officer, to a martyr's death by torture and finally by beheading. Stop and think about that for a minute. The church was spreading like wildfire in a time when everybody knew you could get killed for being a Christian. Just let that sink in. What does St. George say to us? He says what the gospel says. Eventually, we're going to have to make choices. Because whether it's the corrupt Jewish priesthood of the Acts of the Apostles, whether it's the jealous enemies of Jesus in the Gospels, whether it's the Roman Empire that tried to deify its corrupt emperors and make pretty marble statues to all the human vices and try to call them gods, regardless of what the worldly authority is, regardless of what the worldly fashion is, sooner or later we're going to come smack up against it and we're going to have to make a choice. What do we do when the internet bullies trash our faith? What do we do when mindless secular culture schedules every event you want your kids to be part of on a Sunday morning? What do you do when what your employers call business, the gospel calls vice? What do you do when you discover that your investments are going to things you don't want to support? What do you do when no candidate standing for any office completely represents the values of the gospel? Jesus says you got to make a choice. George says, I made a choice. There was a price. There will be a price. But George reminds us there's also a prize. Which do you value more?